All right, ladies and gentlemen, Baron here. So, Russian bombers have been sighted over the sovereign airspace of the United Kingdom. So, naturally, we have to scramble what is, if I believe, the only totally or only English-built supersonic fighter in the history of the United Kingdom. Isn't that crazy? But this thing was pretty amazing. And it was built and flown within the scope of what Gaijin says is the time frame for War Thunder. And we've a lot of downloads have already been made by this model. It was made by Snozzletopf. It's pretty impressive. It's the BAC Lightning F1 or English Electric. He's saying on the page, the download link is going to be in the video description, that there's already been 5,000 downloads. So clearly, a lot of people are pretty excited for these what if type jets, and I think that really kind of that's one of the things I've always been most likely to talk about and most interested in talking about is like the potential of this game and just all the different things you can do in it, and then like things we're going to be able to see in the future. But right now you can see we're going to be intercepting some IL-28s and some PE-8s. This thing was actually designed to intercept some big, beefy, heavy Russian jet bombers, like some stuff that would be akin to a B-52, which, can I just put that in, is also within the scope of, look at these guys just soaking up these shells here. But yeah, the B-52 should also be added. But you know what, I digress as per usual. So let's talk a little bit about this thing. Like, how good was it, right? Well, this bad boy had one of the best climb rates of any supersonic jet for quite a while. It was made in the 50s, but it was pretty good as far as like climb rate was concerned. It's a very maneuverable jet fighter, but the climb rate really, I think, was kind of like the shining gem of this jet. It had a climb rate that was akin to 15 kilometers in a minute. Right now, for comparison, the Mirage 3E initially could only climb at about 9 kilometers a minute. And the MiG-21 only managed around 11 kilometers a minute. Tornado F3, 13 kilometers a minute. So these are some jets that were like really powerful and like really awesome. Like, who doesn't want them to see the MiG-21 in War Thunder? MiG-19s, and then like comparable, like they did some testing with that in the F-104 Starfighter. Like, there's a lot of other jets that, I don't know, depending on where they want to go with this game, like you might see at some point in the future. But hey, you know what, let's get some French and Italians in here. French planes, Italian planes, French tanks. But you know what, everyone loves the jets. I mean, right? Who doesn't love the jets? But yeah, it's a pretty amazing plane, and I like how the community is starting to really getting into making and modeling some things so that we can see, what they would be all about, like what we could expect in War Thunder. And it makes you wonder if like Gaijin might, start sourcing these models from these passion projects. Right now they're passion projects. These guys don't see a dime as far as I'm aware. To make these models. A few others have been put in the past. A lot of them on the workshop are outdated as of patch 1.53. So if anyone knows, like, what was it about 1.53 which really outdated so many skins and so many models? I'm not the most technically inclined of people, but this is just a joy to fly. It's based on an upgraded MiG-17 flight model. See, that's the thing, from what I understand, is you're able to do models and you're able to kind of slightly modify flight models, but you can't create a flight model from scratch, at least to, basically what I'm aware of right now. But yeah, supersonic fighter aircraft, Cold War era, English electric, able to get to Mach 2, which is fast. But interestingly enough, while it was very fast, it had a great climb rate, a very agile and able dogfighter. Like, you can't have everything in one thing. right? You've got to sacrifice in some aspects, and this thing had issue with basically being able, the longevity in which it could remain in, the area of operations. If you're going to be that fast, that maneuverable, you're going to have less ability, less staying power, I guess you could say. And interestingly enough, not too many people outside of the United Kingdom bought them. It was pretty much just an English used plane. I think the Saudis may have used it, I'm not sure. But yeah, like this thing was designed to intercept the Badger, the Tupolev 16, twin-engined strategic bomber. It's like, we need that. And see, that baby was introduced in 1954, right? Hey, might have that. Like right now we've got the PE-8, so you can see us engaging PE-8s and IL-28s. But this bad boy itself would have done a lot better against some of the things we might see in the future. Hey there, PE-8, how you doing? So it'd be fun to see Gaijin really get into like maybe a lot, opening up the locks, I guess, to allow us to really get able to do more when it comes time for custom battles and stuff like that, or user missions to where you could really, like, maybe instead of all these planes flying around, you could script them to have to go on a bombing mission and you'd have to intercept them, right? And it'd be cool to see War Thunder really just using these user-created models to kind of expedite the process. Like, think how much legwork is already done on the BAC Lightning. Like, hey, that mother trucker's ready to go. But it's like, and it kind of opens up the door to like a lot of questions. It's because, like, what are the limits at which we'll experience? Like, will we have air-to-air missiles, or will we just stick to cannons and rockets and bombs? Like, will we have guided missiles or guided bombs? Like, because I've always been a big fan of, like, why not introduce the Oka rocket human guided bomb that the Japanese used? There's just so many interesting projects, so many different things. Like, and we already have the V1s. I remember there's a V1 mission in War Thunder right now where you have to intercept V1s before they hit the United Kingdom, fired from like Belgium and the Netherlands, which is what the Germans did during World War II. But the Germans came up with these guided bombs, and I think radio guided bombs, I think, would be really interesting when and if ships are implemented in the game, because until then, what are you really going to need a Fritz guided bomb for, radio guided bomb? Because those things are just powerful. It would be kind of cool to be able to like be off to the side and guide one in and hit an airfield without really having to worry about, anti-aircraft weaponry or anything like that. You'd be able to fire from outside of that. And even hitting like the AI battleships, cruisers, destroyers, maybe even raid and carrier fleets. It would introduce a lot of more interesting options. Because if you think about it, like, you're flying a bomber and you can press a button and the bomber will stabilize and you can access your rear gunners, right? So fundamentally, it wouldn't be too difficult to do. You'd be in your bomber, and then you'd basically press that key so your plane would level out, and then you would just target. You would basically then, control the Oka or control the Fritz guided bomb, and much like you can watch bombs fall, instead of just watching while the plane is flying by itself perfectly fine, you would then be able to guide it yourself. And it's like, that kind of stuff is what I really, really love. Like, I'd like to see glider-borne tanks and stuff like that. But I guess with this BAC Lightning, it's like, hey, should we ever have missiles, in the highest tier of jets? Like, why not have kind of, that beginning Cold War era jets, which we already kind of are flirting with in the game right now. And why not have missiles, stuff like that? That would be interesting. I don't know if they're able to model it or in-game engine, if there's limitations there. Because I feel like sometimes game companies will be like, oh, we're not interested in doing that. when in reality their engines can't, like the game engines itself just can't do it, just can't process. Like World of Warships, like, oh, we're never gonna have submarines, but then you come to understand, like, they say that their engine just can't support it, but publicly they're like, oh, we're not interested in submarines, right? But and that's not like set in stone, that theory in itself, but that's kind of the leading theory out there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'd be a fan of missiles. Like, just have a specific battle rating, a specific tier at which you experience those. Like, you'll never be in a B-17 and all of a sudden an air-to-air missile locks on you and you're dead. Nothing like that. But then again, I've also proposed like a battle rating 0, where we get to see some World War I and early interwar era aircraft. So we can try the Fokker triplane and the Sopwith Camel and the Gotha, like the early Gotha bombers, and just like crazy stuff like that. Like, we've got TB3s in the game. We've got, we got biplanes. Like, I think it'd be fun to have more stuff like that. Make them cheap premiums, like a couple, 20 to 100, 200 gold, something like that. Make some money off it, but give us like what we want to play. That's the thing. You have a game like this, you're gonna want to play everything from, the Fokker triplane all the way up to a BAC Lightning, all the way up to an F-104 Starfighter, all the way up to a B-52. I mean, why not? Why not? That's all I'm saying. So, missiles, sure, within reason. I mean, they wouldn't be... I mean, it's not like a magic bullet, especially early missiles. Think about that. I mean, they're not just like fire and you got your target. There's maneuvering, there's countermeasures. Ace pilots would be able to avoid them. And as that, like, if there's a battle rating, if the battle ratings are to a point where they're stable and you're not flying in your Me-262 and fighting BAC Lightnings or anything like that, why not? Why not? And then you get to see a lot of the really exciting jet fighters, jet bombers, all that stuff from the early Cold War era, when like just weapons production was just absolutely out of this world in terms of like the speed, the developments, all the things, the simple quantity in production. Tupolev 16s, Badgers, you know what I mean? Like B-52s, Sabres, Super Sabres. There's just endless possibilities, right? And that's why I've always liked this game, is just the endless potential. But anyway, so that, ladies and gentlemen, is Snozzletoff's English Electric or BAC Lightning F1. He's got a lot of downloads. It's really cool. People are making missions on these now. I highly encourage you to check out the different models that are in the game that you can actually use. Like, I saw someone trying to make an LVT A4, which is an amphibious tank, which was something I had talked about when the PT-76 finally was able to swim and to float. And I was like, man, think about all the different amphibious tanks we could see, and if there were maps that were catering to such vehicles, how exciting and how dynamic that would be, right? Especially when you count for, like, if and when they're going to implement Japanese tanks. Like, there's some amphibious tanks that the Japanese have, and it'd be cool to have, like, that as kind of a relative advantage that nation has over the others, because Japan's going to need it, quite frankly. In other news, yesterday I almost chopped off the tip of my finger. It was really, really bad. I was in, what would you say? I was in the hospital, in the ER, and in surgery, and in triage, and in all that stuff. It took like a total of 5 hours, but it was my right ring finger. So if you think about it yourself as a PC gamer, right? You gotta have, your left hand is WASD, so you want all your fingers there. And my right hand is the mouse, right? And so you pretty much have your index finger and middle finger touching the buttons, and then the rest is just kind of hold the mouse. So all things considered, I'd say I got pretty lucky. I'm very fortunate that it wasn't worse than it was, or that it was a different finger, because I'm still able to fly planes. I'm still able to make videos. Typing is a bit of an issue, but all said and done, I've got to count my blessings. And thank you guys yesterday for that epic 3-year anniversary. It's been great times. And I guess, not everything goes according to plan because I was like all hopped up yesterday. Like, man, it's a great day. Getting ready for a big party. Celebrating this very special occasion with 3 years of content production and all the things that we've accomplished. And then slice, almost lost my finger. But I didn't. So, hey, all things considered, life's pretty good. So, ladies and gentlemen, I thank y'all for watching. Make sure to stay tuned for more in the future. And you know what? I'll see you guys soon.